Let us go down to the grid. One of those teams fighting for Pro-Am honours is that of Dan Wells and Oscar Lee, and at least one of them is in conversation with Marietta Evans.
Good morning, and how exciting it is to be on the grid this morning when we have still 3 titles to be decided. And as you said, one of the title contenders in Pro-Am is Dan Wells. Dan, you still have an opportunity to fight for the title, but you do have quite a lot of traffic ahead of you. How important is it going to be to do a good start?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit difficult, like you say. We're quite a few points behind, but we're never out of the fight. We're going to give it everything. We've got one of these races, which is, you know, is it slicks, is it wets? It's going to be a very exciting race. I had great pace in the wet the other day, and I'm just going to try and mimic the same thing as I did in pre-practice, and hope we can get a good result.
Thank you, good luck.
Well, Marietta, one thing that's going to be worth looking at if you get a chance on the grid, I suspect, is, and Dan Wells has touched on it, what they're going to do for tyres. Because right now, you would think that maybe it's wet, but I think by the end of the 50 minutes, even by the end of the first stint, potentially, slicks will be the order of the day. So if you find anybody on a wet tyre, it'll be interesting, because I think that might be the wrong decision during the course of the stint. That said, you could go wets, but make sure you pit early. Where you've got your quicker driver in first, you'd normally want him to stay out for as long as possible, maximise the time he's going to do. But that plan might change, depending, of course, on just exactly what the track conditions are going to do. Now, the other teams just checking tyres on the grid. I can see looking down onto the grid, and the field very shortly will be allowed away on that formation lap. So the next one to head to, perhaps, is going to be in AM, because as you look at 61, which is the Max Weary and Loris Spinelli entry, Andrzej Lewandowski is one of the leading lights within the AM category, and he is on the grid, and he's another driver, Marietta, who is in with a chance of winning a championship this weekend.
Well known among all of the Super Trofeo fans, and this time he arrives leading in the AM category. But Andrew, it's very tight between you and your title contender, so how are you approaching this race?
Yes, and that's why we are very near white point, and that's why I'm nervous, and the weather is unpredictable, and that's why everything will be happened, you know. I don't know what will be, yes. Yes, okay.
Thank you, good luck.
Andrzej Lewandowski has made a habit of winning over the years in Super Trofeo. Had quite a sizable off last year, you might recall, in Misano in the World Finals, but ordinarily he is the man to beat, and he has been last year's Pro-Am champion. He was the 2020 Pro-Am champion. He was the 2019 World Final Pro-Am champion. 2018 he was the AM champion. 2017 AM champion. Last year did some Pro-Am racing with Karol Bash, his fellow countryman. So he, as I say, is one of the front runners. Eduardo Liberati sharing with Martin Rieber. He is the start driver in the car that's run by the new team, effectively, coming into Super Trofeo. Eduardo Liberati for Brutal Fish Racing aboard number 71. Martin Rieber has done quite a lot of TCR racing, but now turning his attention to Super Trofeo. Another team to watch is going to be Iron Dames of Michel Gatting and Dorian Penn, but also for Pro-Am honours, the Oregon team entry. Lewis Williamson will start. Massimo Ciglia is the second driver. They're fighting for the Pro-Am championship. Let's rejoin Marietta.
Lewis, you start way ahead from your title rivals on the grid. How much of an advantage is that going to give you?
Yes, it's nice to be further up the grid for sure, but this race is going to be about getting to the end in these conditions. Some guys on slick, some guys on wet, so we play it safe and we'll see what happens at the end of this race. So it's great to be here. It's awesome. Looking forward to this one. So
thank good luck.
Lewis Williamson, very experienced driver. He's been racing in Super Trofeo this year alongside a British GT campaign. Go back a few years, he was a very, very rapid single-seater driver, but then switched disciplines away from the likes of Formula Renault in the UK to what was then called the Blancpain Endurance Series. He drove for Straka Racing and was the 2018 Pro-Am champion in the Blancpain Series. Amaury Bonduel there, one of the drivers fighting for runners-up honours in Pro, and he also has been a race winner this season. In terms of outright wins, Max Wearing and Loris Spinelli, and it's Loris Spinelli starting, they won the first 6 on the bounce and then took a further 2. So they've had 8 wins. Other winners this year outright, Milan Tikans and Marzio Moretti, they've had 1 win. And Amaury Bonduel also took 1 win. He had a second on the road, but was then given a penalty for a pit lane infringement. So when you apply the penalty, he fell down the order. It will be a rolling start, as I've been saying. 50 minutes. The pit window opens at 20 minutes, and it's open for 10 minutes in total. A pit stop, if you're on your own, is 97 seconds. But if you have a co-driver, it's 94. The difference, of course, being that if you've been doing the first stint, then you know exactly what the track conditions are like. You know what the car is like, and that gives you a small advantage going into stint 2, whereas the double driver entries have no such luxury. So that needs to be addressed, and so that little 3-second addition is given to the soloists. So the Lamborghini Urus, the leading car, is there. The Huracan safety car is positioned just in case it's needed, and it might be, given the slippery nature of the circuit. There'll be a lot of interested American teams, I would have thought, as well, looking at this, as the engines fire up now at the 1-minute board, because they are going to learn what the track is like both now and towards the end of the 50 minutes. And that will affect the way that they go into their standalone race later on. It's only tomorrow and Sunday, when we get to the world final element of the competition, that the Americans and the Europeans go head-to-head. Sadly, again, for the second year in a row, we don't have the Asian contingent here. The Asian Championship is going to restart next season, which is great news. But of course, with the problems of travel in the Far East, then the calendar next year, which will include Australia, has had to be very, very carefully looked at, and there's just been no racing possible really for the last couple of seasons for Super Trofeo. That will change for next year, and so next year's World Finals will have the Asian Championship represented as well, all being well. So then, the cars and the grid is complete. Looking at it, are about to go. The Urus blasts away, and actually there's a little bit more spray being generated as they go down towards Portimao, the first corner that I was expecting. You blast away from the line on this long pit straight and then drop downhill. The road then climbs a little through the next 2 elements of the first corner. It goes right, right, and then right again. Bit like the way that Navarra operates as another example of this for the first corner, where you turn and turn and turn again, and up at Lagos then it's a much tighter right-hand hairpin before you then accelerate into the next left-handed part. Let's look at the grid, which has Loris Spinelli starting on pole position with Edoardo Liberati lining up alongside. Lewis Williamson is going to start 3rd on the grid, with Amaury Bonduel lining up alongside. Lewis Williamson, remember, is the man who is leading in the Pro-Am Championship right now. Amaury Bonduel coming into this 2nd in Pro. On the 3rd row of the grid, Stefan Tribodini for Vincenzo Sospiri Racing, and then you have alongside Carol Bash. Alongside Tribodini is Michel Gatting for the Iron Dames team. Now, the Iron Dames, new to the championship this weekend, having achieved a great deal already in Ferrari Challenge, in the European Le Mans Series, and in the Spa 24 Hours, where they won the Gold Cup. Antonin Borja starts 9th on the grid, co-driving with the motorbike racing legend Dani Pedrosa, and Andrei Lewandowski lines up alongside him. Then it's Dan Wells with a bit of work to do, starting 11th on the grid, and new to the championship, Robert Vandenberg is going to line up alongside, sharing with his son Jonathan. That car recategorised Pro-Am from Pro. Filippo Berto is next, with Gabriel Rindoni, the Luxembourgish driver, lining up alongside him. Then you get to Pietro Perolini, and alongside Perolini is Dimitri Gavatseva, whose co-driver Milan Petelet is 3rd in Pro-Am. Stefan Guerin is next, he's 3rd in the AM competition, with Lamborghini young driver David Mihai Serban next alongside him. Raffaele Giannone, 2nd in AM, lines up alongside 63, which is Lamborghini veteran Cedric Lima. Next up comes the rapid Pro-Am entry of Emmanuel Colombini, and alongside him is the French driver Jean-Francois Bruno. Then you've got Donovan Privitello and Adrian Lewandowski. Shota Abkhazova comes next, and another newcomer to the championship for CMR, a new team, the team owner, Charlie Burasho. Then it's Gregor Makchulski, with Holger Harmsen lining up alongside, ahead of Jürgen Krebs and Francois Semoulin in number 26, the Belgian driver. Behind them, you've got Cyril Lima aboard number 19, and very experienced Claude-Yves Gosselin next. Gerhard Watzinger sharing with a very quick Brendan Leach comes next, and alongside him is going to be number 69 of Arturus Batrax. Then Gerard van der Horst and Pierre Feligioni. Next on the grid, Libor Dvoracek, and alongside Dvoracek, Francois Grinders, Daniel Waszyński and Hans Fabry, and then Hernandez Ortega and Prabhakaran Kumar to complete the grid. Now, the race underway. We were told there were going to be 2 formation laps, but the race very definitely is underway, and so as they come out of the first corner, a good start made by Amaury Bonduel to try and hit the front, and he has done so ahead of there Eduardo Liberati with 66. A good start also. Carol Bash round the outside, and a red flag. The red flag is being shown. Now, I think that is because the cars took the start when they shouldn't have done. So the race is being stopped. So we were told it was going to be 2 formation laps, and now everybody has to try and get the message and slow down. But I think this is because, as far as I could see, there was no safety car on track to control them, and therefore the cars accelerated away. So Alain Adon, the race director, will be doing his nut downstairs in race control to try and bring things under control and start again. But a red flag to start the day, and whatever the plan was, has not been adhered to. So ordinarily, the safety car would stay out for that extra formation lap. But by not doing so, it looks as though the plan has gone slightly awry. So the race is going to be restarted, regridded, I would anticipate. And we'll go again. We will await confirmation, but this is not quite what was anticipated to begin with. So, a full start. It gives you a chance to have a look at the circuit. It gives the drivers that little bit of extra time to explore where the track traction may be, where the grip levels are on the road. Track limits, as ever, was a big talking point yesterday, but actually very, very few people seem to be in hot water for it. More people were getting done for speeding in the pit lane, actually, than for offences of track limits. Maybe as they get more confident with the circuit, they're going to push harder, and that will all change over the course of the weekend. Another element, of course, to bear in mind here is that relatively few drivers have raced at Portimao. Some of them done the 24-hour series races, and 1 or 2 would have been here in different things. But one of the features of the World Final weekend is to try and level the playing field. You come to a venue that hasn't been on the European calendar that season. Well, that's fair enough, but Portimao hasn't been on the European calendar for a long, long time, if ever. This is the 49th different circuit to host Lamborghini Super Trofeo in its history. So even for the European drivers, not everybody has raced here before. So the cars now make their way back up towards the grid, where the next part of the plan will be revealed. But yes, as I say, the race was underway, but shouldn't have been. The clock should have started, which we saw, but the idea was that they would do another formation lap in the time and then be released at the end of the next one. So this is the run up to the pit straight. See, it climbs a little. And so Amaury Bonduel, who accelerated away to grab the race lead, he is going to have to do that all over again. So right now, we are under a red flag, but they're not stopping on the grid. They're carrying on. The teams make their way onto the grid. Now they stop. Right, okay. So the teams being allowed onto the grid, the cars stopping down the pit straight where the start line is. The Algarve circuit here in Portimao, one of many where you have start and finish lines in different places. So the finish line is the timing line, is the control line, but the start line is further down the pit straight. So now the officials have got to try and get them in the right grid order, he says slightly hesitantly, because are they going to be allowed to run in the order that they were? Well, we haven't had a lap, so technically they shouldn't be in the order they were. They should be in grid order. So this might take a few minutes now. So quite a few of them out of position. The teams trying to make sure their drivers are where they ought to be. There is Loris Spinelli, who got well and truly mugged off the notional start, but probably because he was doing it right, not accelerating, and others did. So whether anybody will face a penalty for their zealotry, we'll have to wait and find out. But certainly Loris Spinelli lines himself up now. back onto pole position in the Bonaldi Motorsport car that he shares with Max Beering, this year's Pro Champion. Yet another title, effectively, for Loris Spinelli, who has won the Pro-Am Championship in Europe. He's won the Pro-European title, the Pro-Am European again, and he won the Pro-Am in the World Final back in 2018. So the race winner in Europe and North America, adding this year's successes to the list. 71 then, Eduardo Liberati for Brutal Fish Racing Team, being pushed back into place. And the next thing to see is whether or not the race distance is going to be shortened at all. And indeed, what happens next for the start, because you could argue that they've just had an extra warming up lap, for want of a better phrase, while they were coming back round to the grid. However, first up, we've got one or two cars that need to be put into the correct place on the grid. So, like I say, this will take a few minutes. There's the Iron Dames entry. Now, Michelle Gatting, I was touching on earlier on, sharing that car with Dorian Pin. Dorian is on pole position for the second race, based on her qualifying efforts. Michelle Gatting, massively experienced driver, whether it's been from touring cars to karts. And Dorian Pin winning 9 out of the 14 races in Ferrari Challenge Europe this year in order to win the title. And Iron Dames coming into Lamborghini Super Trofeo, and there is talk of increasing that relationship for next season, but no doubt that news will be announced, such as it will be, over the course of this weekend. So the clock has now been set to 48 minutes, looking at my timing screen. So it's going to be a restart, or a race now. It's not really started at all, has it? Over 48 minutes. Part of which, of course, is that they need the formation lap anyway. And they can't keep doing a 50-minute duration because the fuel load's coming down, and the danger is there isn't enough fuel to get to the end. So for each false start, then there needs to be a lap, effectively, or some time taken off the duration. There's the Oscar Lee Dan Wells car. Dan Wells at the wheel of it. Oscar Lee will take over. That's the Rexall FFF Racing Team entered car. Change of teams for them for this season. And the 5-minute board is now shown. So we go again from the 5-minute mark. And you can see one or two teams having a little bit of work just on the grid in front of where I'm looking. Gregor Mochulski's team just wiping the windscreen and making sure the wheels are tight. 54, which is the Milan Tikans Marzio Moretti car. Marzio Moretti is going to start. Milan Tikans, the quick Dutch driver, will take over. Both of them on Lamborghini's Young Driver programme, and Marzio Moretti, who was 4th last year in Carrera Cup Italy, switching brands for this season. Right, so the officials on the grid have got everybody into the right place. And hopefully the message about what to do at the start will have got through this time. Wet tyres being brought out. I think there are one or two on wets, but it's hard from up on high to really see what the teams have gone on to. Ronek Formanek from the Michenek Motorsport ACCR squad, who shares with Carol Bash, quick driver, and that's another one to watch within the Pro-Am battle. So the grid formed, the 5-minute board shown, the countdown to the start continues. And very shortly, therefore, the cars will have engines fire and be allowed back round for the start of the race. So that's Amaury Bonduel, who is fighting to be runner-up in Pro. He drives for the BDR Competition by Gruppo Prom Racing Team squad. And a race winner he has been this year. He won the second race at Spa. Amaury Bonduel moving into Lamborghini Super Trofeo, having been in the past a racer in single-seaters, Italian Formula 4, Formula Renault Euro Cup, GP3, but like quite a few drivers now electing to make that switch from single-seaters to GT-style cars, because there's perhaps more of a future, especially if you get in with a manufacturer, and Lamborghini, with so many different programs and a hypercar on the way as well, can offer that for young drivers if they make a big impression. There is, of course, a factory driver roster. There is a junior driver roster. the young drivers, David Serban, who is on this grid, Amaury Bonduel, Milan Tikens, Jean-Luc Daria, Milon Petelet, Marzio Moretti, Filippo Alberto, Alessandro Tarabini, all on this grid. And then you've got another half a dozen or so that we'll come to in the North American races during the course of the day as well. Right, the good news for the teams is that the road is getting drier. The sun is breaking through. We're now about 9:15 local time, and the teams now will face a track that is still greasy, yes, but it's going to be drying out all the time. So there, the tyre trolleys taken away. The road just about ready to receive the cars on the formation lap or laps. I haven't got a message line up here, which therefore doesn't confirm to us whether or not there is going to be the same idea of having 2 formation laps. But we will find out in due course, because very shortly engines will fire. The rather alarming klaxon sounds, which have the indication that mechanics must now clear the grid. The 1 minute board shown, and we shall await the cars to be flagged away in a moment. So, penultimate round of Lamborghini Super Trofeo. They started at Imola. Of course, it's double headers everywhere. Then to Paul Ricard, then to Misano, to Spa, and last time out, Barcelona. And so the Iberian end to the season continues here in Portugal. Grid ready to go. There, Loris Spinelli alongside Edoardo Liberati, 2 very, very quick Italians at the front of the grid. Lewis Williamson behind, whose task is to win the Pro-Am contest, keep out of trouble. There's the Am battle to keep an eye on as well, and Lamborghini Cup. So a lot will shake out of this first race when it gets going, and that is imminent. So the Urus leading car sets off again. Now the race cars accelerate away also. So the formation lap underway. 48 minutes it will be. These cars always make an absolutely fantastic noise, and the view on board with Lewis Williamson as he turns his way then up through turn number 4, accelerates then now round the back of the paddock and drops over the brow down towards turn 5, the Torre VIP. Now there's a cut through on the left, but you ignore that, you go further on, drop down, and it's a much, much tighter hairpin down to first gear as he turns through that corner. Back onto the power now, the climb uphill, left-hander at turn 6, and then you've got a sharpish right at 7 up towards turn 8, the Samsung corner. And again, you can see how greasy, how slippery it's going to be for the first few laps. So as the Iron Dames entry of Michelle Gatting turns through, exactly what drivers have been saying to Marietta on the grid about keeping out of trouble, it's going to be borne out, I'm sure. And those that do have dramas will find themselves having to play catch-up. The Urus then comes over the brow, down towards the left-hand Craig Jones kink at turn 9, and then up towards turn 10, 11, which is a long, long right-hander that plunges you downhill, a sort of corkscrew effect, through 12, a little kink, and then 13 at the bottom, which loops you around back uphill. Again, you've got this plot of land, and there's as much circuit as possible sort of wriggled into it. 4.6 kilometres long is the Algarve circuit, the Autodromo Internacional Algarve. So this is coming out of turn 13. Make the climb now through the second element of the corner, up towards Sagres, named after the local beer, or turn 14 if you prefer, and that's another long, long corner. But now the cars getting themselves in order. Loris Spinelli, the man on pole position then, with the title already in his pocket. He comes here, in a sense, with no pressure. He wants to go out and win 2 more races with Max Weering, the ever-quickening Dutch driver, far less experienced, but a very quick peddler. And also, of course, he wants to try and win that World Final, which is certainly possible over the course of this weekend. So the cars now make their way out of turn 15, the Galp right-hander. The Urus makes its way into the pit lane. The lights on the gantry are red, and the lights on the gantry will change potentially. Loris Spinelli accelerates away, and the cars blast down towards turn 1. This time we do get a green light, so we do go racing, and it is Loris Spinelli that leads, with Lewis Williamson then diving up the inside line. Liberati dives through as well, but can't quite do it. Around the outside, Amaury Bonduelle does what he did at the first time of asking, grabs the race lead. 1 or 2 running wide, perhaps exceeding track limits by going off the road, but Spinelli again, look, goes backwards. Now, is that because he's elected to go onto slicks and others haven't, or has he got a problem because Spinelli tiptoes his way out of the corner? I do think that this is partly to do with tyre choice, so those that are on slicks tiptoeing around, trying to get the warmth into them, which is going to be very, very difficult, whereas Amaury Bonduelle potentially starting on wets to try and build a lead and then do a tyre change at the pit stop. Coming right at the start of the window, is deep into the corner. There goes Lewandowski. Spinelli slithers out wide as well, so you can see now who has made the commitment to go on to grippier tyres. Also out wide there, but getting away with it, number 6, that was Stefan Tribaudigny, the former GT4 racer, starting in that car. As Dan Wells goes through number 51, he in turn has got Antonin Bourgeat behind him. And there, number 60 goes now uphill. That is Andrei Lewandowski. Remember, trying to take home yet another championship in the AM class. We've got a yellow flag out at turn 4, so we've had drama. Not only have they got the spray to contend with, they've got the sun in their eyes, as there Dan Wells goes through ahead of Michel Gatting. Drop downhill now, coming out of turn 11 for the first time through that corkscrew effect. The field tiptoeing through the less grippy part of the circuit, but Amaury Bonduelle it is that leads the way, with, in second place, by the look of it, Carol Bash. You've got Lewis Williamson in third place. Eduardo Liberati is fourth. There, 54, Marzio Moretti trying to fend off Stefan Tribaudigny, who tries to get up the inside line there as they come into Galp turn 15 to complete the first lap of the race. So, very definitely, the road is affecting the way that people can push, and those that are on wets being able to be braver than those that are on slicks. And Bonduelle has gone storming through, and actually now, at proper speed, it does look as though, certainly for the first stint, wets is the way to go, because there's still quite a lot of water hanging in the air, as you can see. And where in all of this is Loris Spinelli? He's yet to even get to the timing line. There's a big, big dive is made there. Look, Tribaudigny around the outside of Marzio Moretti, but he runs way out of road. That is a track limit excess for sure, as he goes way out wide at turn 1 and turn 2 and gets back onto the circuit. Loris Spinelli down in 15th place then on that first stint. So that's got to be slicks, and Loris Spinelli therefore suggesting that it is not the weather conditions for those tyres right now, and that therefore is going to have an effect on exactly what his pace is going to be like within the first stint. But as the road dries, so the track conditions will come to him. It just depends where that tipping point is. In qualifying yesterday, a 1:41.9 was the fastest that the teams were doing. Loris Spinelli for pole position. We are, of course, going to be quite a long way adrift of that early in the race. Now, as far as the classes are concerned, Carol Bash leading Pro-Am, the leading Lamborghini Cup entry. Very, very good first lap by Donovan Privitello, and the leading Am is Andrei Lewandowski. It's a big, big effort he's made there. Look by Dan Wells to try to get up past Marzio Moretti. That is Pro-Am versus Pro, but Moretti for the moment keeps Dan Wells, the China-based Brit, at bay. Drop down the hill then. The clock ticking on down from that 48-minute starting point. And there the cars make the run yet again down towards us, still trying to find the grip, trying to get the warmth into the tyres all the time. Marzio Moretti with a hint of understeer slithers his way into the exit of turn 14 of Sagres down towards Galp. But the race leader, Amaury Bonduelle, led at the end of the opening tour by 2.2 seconds. Let's now see whether he can get away even further as the margin continues to increase. He has just gone over the timing line from Carol Bash, from Lewis Williamson in third place. Eduardo Liberati round fourth, Stefan Tribaudigny is fifth, sixth place is Marzio Moretti, and then in seventh place, as they come across the timing line, Dan Wells, eighth Michel Gatting, ninth Robert Vandenberg, and 10th Antonin Bourgeat. As you look there at Marzio Moretti making his way now up through the first corner. Now, what about Spinelli? Is he making any progress? At the moment, the answer is seemingly no. He's dropped further down the order. As you look there at number 6 in Stefan Tribodini, he's running in 5th place, but Tribodini now is the driver who is second in pro to Amaury Bonduelle. The cars make the run up the hill once more, coming out of turn 5 over the brow, and Amaury Bonduelle led at the end of the opening lap by 2.6 seconds. So as the cars make the run through now, you've got this fight going on between Liberati and Tribodini for 4th place, but again, that's a Pro-Am ahead of a Pro. Loris Spinelli down in 23rd place now, desperately waiting for the track conditions to come to him. By the end of the hour, it will be a lot better, but by that stage, it will be Max Wearing in the car, and they will have lost too much time. I say the hour because it's effectively an hour slot that the race takes with the build-up and the formation laps, plus, in this case, the red flag. Now there, Lewis Williamson coming under attack for 2nd place from Carol Bash, but that means that Williamson has got ahead of him. Liberati taking Tribodini with him as well, catching up for 4th place. But Lewis Williamson, crucially now, into the lead of Pro-Am. Dan Wells is 4th in Pro-Am, so he's got work to do here. Out of turn 14, then drops Lewis Williamson, comes down the hill onto the power now and storms his way up over the timing line. The start of Edoardo Liberati is under investigation. Amaury Bonduelle has gone through as the race leader, now 3 seconds clear of Lewis Williamson. And look at the way that Williamson now is getting ahead of Carol Bash, who was one of the stars of the GT Cup last week in the FIA Motorsport Games. In 4th place is Edoardo Liberati being looked at for his start. In 5th place is Stefan Tribodini, and 6th is Marzio Moretti. It is still Andrei Lewandowski ahead of Shota Alcazaba in AM. It is still Donovan Privitello in the Lamborghini Cup right now. Now there is Lewis Williamson. He's now done the fastest lap of the race, interestingly, and was 0.3 quicker than Amaury Bonduelle last time, and the gap is therefore coming down. Lewis Williamson wants for nothing in terms of ability, so the Scottish driver comes now out of turn 5, climbs the hill. There's that left kink. There's an awful lot of undulation, a lot of incline here at the Algarve circuit. And the fight is on now for 3rd place. Look, Carol Bash, after his lightning start, fading into the clutches of Edoardo Liberati. So that, with the first 8 minutes virtually done, becoming the next battle to look for. 3rd and 4th, Stefan Tribodini next in the queue. But as the road starts to dry, is the circuit therefore starting to help those on the slick tyre? Well, there's only really Spinelli of note that has gone tumbling down the order. He's not being helped yet. I tell you, he's down in 24th place. So he's actually, for Spinelli, the danger is now dropping off the lead lap, because he's lost so much time that could well be an issue. Francois Grimm into the pit lane at the end of the 1st lap, and Daniel Waszinski's car never got into the race, incidentally. That car absent, seemingly, from the grid. So this is the fight now for 3rd place. Carol Bash versus Edoardo Liberati, as the field makes its way now up over the timing line once more, and Bonduelle to Williamson has come right down, 1.8 seconds. There's another fastest lap of the race. He's done by Lewis Williamson then, who is absolutely flying, and a big dive is made there. Look, Edoardo Liberati up on the inside of Carol Bash, who can't find a way through Edoardo Liberati, but he's certainly got the pace. Stefan Tribodini next in the queue in the white car. Tribodini for Vincenzo Sospiri Racing. Tribodini, who's been a GT4 and GT3 class champion, there he is. He will give that car over to Jean-Luc Daria for the 2nd stint. But now the lap times are below 2 minutes for the really quick drivers at the pointy end of the field, whereas Loris Spinelli, who has yet to come across the line last lap, was doing 2-minute 10s. So if he's junking over 10 seconds a lap, like I say, he's going to be lucky to stay on the lead lap, and the gamble about the road drying quickly enough has not worked out. The start of Edoardo Liberati, no further action, so that is a thumbs up from the stewards. And Lewis Williamson continues to be the quickest man on the racetrack, and there he is. So Lewis Williamson, who will give the car over to Massimo Ciglia in the next stint, makes the run down the hill. still chasing after Amaury Bonduelle. The last timing point had the gap at 1.799 seconds. And this is Bonduelle, who, having shot away, is certainly being caught. It was over 2 seconds at the start of the lap, but it's down to 1.7. So Lewis Williamson here, not only thinking about a Pro-Am win, but maybe an outright win. Massimo Cilia is not slow, so the combination of Lewis Williamson and Massimo Cilia after this great stint by Lewis does suggest that they could be on for a very, very good overall position here. Leaders come up towards the timing line. Through they go, and as they do so, the lead gap is right down to 1.2 seconds. Loris Spinelli, in the meantime, still tiptoeing along. Others likewise struggling. Claude-Yves Gosselin there. Now, Claude-Yves, a very, very experienced driver, go back to the days of Formula 3000 to FIA GT. But that car also struggling, seemingly, in these conditions. That car, another run by the Rexel FFF racing team, Andrea Caldarelli's squad. And it's about to go a lap down, isn't it? Claude-Yves Gosselin is shortly to drop a lap. There are the leaders. You can see how much it's come down. 1.2 seconds at the last timing point. It's going to be much, much less than that now. And Lewis Williamson might even be on to challenge for the race lead on this lap as the cars make the climb now up towards turn 7. Lewis Williamson turns through. Still pushing, still hunting. And there is Amaury Bonduelle, who now rather looks like he's on borrowed time. Remember, he is fighting against the Maggio Moretti Milan Ticans, entering as far as the championship is concerned for second in Pro-Am. Getting a replay of the start, 1 or 2 drivers being quicker away than others. You can see just how much spray being generated. Have a look at Bonduelle on the outside line. Used all of the road and then some. This was Lewis Williamson's view. He got a bit stuck on the inside line. There goes Bonduelle. It's hard to gauge how much of the curve he used, but I don't think he was that excessive, actually. Carole Bash very brave round the outside as well, but Spinelli was the cork in the bottle, and anybody that was on his side of the grid got a bit stuck behind him. Lewis Williamson was one such driver, look, because it took him a while to then be able to go to the outside, going up towards turn 3 at Lagos and then go past. So, big slide there, look, coming down towards turn 1 under braking. That was, I fear, Stefan Guerin or Prabhakaran Kumar. Leaders go through, 0.4 of a second between them now. So Amaury Bonduelle, 0.4 up on Lewis Williamson as you look at Carole Bash going through. He's falling away a little bit in that third place, and now it's game on for the race lead. Lewis Williamson then for the Oregon Racing Team in those oh-so-distinctive colours that have adorned many a car in many a category over the seasons, right there on the back of Amaury Bonduelle for the race lead. So Bonduelle just, for the moment, the French driver hanging on to the advantage. They come up to put a lap then now on Claude-Yves Gosselin. You can see over the last 3 laps how that gap has come down, and Lewis Williamson gets the drive off the corner, does he? Not quite. Now they have to negotiate Gosselin, which they do, but Bonduelle, as I say, very definitely on borrowed time. It will not be long before Lewis Williamson is up and past him. The way that Bonduelle has dropped time corner by corner, and there's just nothing he can do to stop Williamson making his bid on the inside. They lean on each other. Bonduelle gets run out wide over the curb and through the gravel, but Lewis Williamson comes through, elbows out, and takes over the race lead. Brave, bold stuff. Through he has gone. And so we've got a new race leader, and there he is, Lewis Williamson then in charge. Now, whether the stewards will say that was out of order, the contact, remains to be seen, but he certainly stuck his nose up the inside. Amaury Bonduelle didn't want to give way, understandably, but hard racing, and Lewis Williamson goes through. Now they do put a lap on Stefan Guerin, and Guerin, remember, is another driver here, fighting for points within the AM Championship, but he is so far behind the class leader, Andrei Lewandowski, and he comes into this third, anyway, 13 points back, but I think pretty much the decision on tyres here has gone completely against Stefan Guerin. Let's have a look at the move for the lead. Midway through the corner, Lewis Williamson decides that there is a gap, and he goes for it. And Bonduelle tries to move across. Lewis Williamson was already there. Now, there was a huge hole for him to dive into. So, although Amaury Bonduelle a bit late tried to move across and close the door, I think that was Lewis Williamson's corner. And very definitely now it is his race lead as the field turns through for the completion of this lap. And as they come now down towards the approach to turn 4, Lewis Williamson getting away at the end of that lap by 1.4 seconds now. So we are on lap 8. Lewis Williamson has done the fastest lap of the race, a 1:58.642. And had already pulled out the margin to 1.4 seconds. Now, not only that, of course, but he leads Pro-Am. So Amaury Bonduelle is still leading in Pro, as you look at Michel Gatting, who is in 8th place now, behind Dan Wells. Again, working through traffic, those two cars. And a Loris Spinelli update, he's down into 27th place. There's no way back from that far, other than a safety car in the second stint, I would propose. 72 goes through, that's the driver from Malaysia, Kumar Prabhakaran. And 71, which is Eduardo Liberati, currently 3rd in Pro-Am, despite being on the front row of the grid. Now up here, the road looking drier coming out of turn 11. Michel Gatting getting closer to Dan Wells, that margin down and down and down between the pair of them. Dimitri Gavatsova has just gained a place a little bit further back also for Target Racing. Gavatsova getting himself 11th at the expense of Philippe Auberto, as now Dan Wells comes under attack. Michel Gatting, one of the pro category drivers, 4th in class at the moment, getting onto the back of the British driver as they tiptoe their way from Sagres down towards turn 15. And then the road climbs as they make the run up towards the line once more. Lead gap, Williamson to Bonduelle is now 3 seconds, but this could well be a move on now for Michel Gatting. She's running the draft as they come over the line. Both cars going for the wetter part of the racetrack to keep the tyres cool, to try and eke them out all the way to the pit stops. Down through turn 1 goes Dan Wells. The Oregon team watching the progress of the race leader, Lewis Williamson. But the Iron Dames entry, part of Iron Links, the Andrea Piccini squad, but Iron Dames, Deborah Meyer's initiative. That car looking for a way now, up and past Dan Wells. Together they run. And they're not that far, of course, behind some of the traffic. Marzio Moretti just up the road in 6th place. Michel Gatting goes deep down towards turn 5. And now makes the move. Dives to the inside line, heading out of 6 into 7, gets up the inside of Dan Wells, who tries to close the door. Just about fends off Michel Gatting, but the danger is he goes deep into turn 7, which he does. He runs out a little bit wide, but hangs onto the place. Back onto the power, the car squirming as they come over the brow. Got a great battle this between Pro-Am and Pro-Class cars, and it is Dan Wells just ahead as they come over the hill now. Up towards turn 10, drop down the hill. In the dry, this is a really fast, really daunting part of the circuit. In these greasy conditions, they're having to be oh so careful. And Dan Wells feeling the pressure a little bit as we get ever closer to that pit window opening. We've done 17 3/4 minutes of the race as the leader, Lewis Williamson, now makes the run again up towards the timing line. The road is certainly drier. There's less spray being generated now than there was at the start of the race. But again, he's another driver on wets that goes for the wetter part of the racetrack. Spinelli 26, still struggling. Leader goes through, and Lewis Williamson it is then, in charge by 3.6 seconds from Amaury Bonduelle, who is still leading his class, and that's important, of course, for him in the championship for points. And Michel Gatting has just gone across the line, lining up to have a go at Dan Wells as the leader drops downhill. Bit of debris on the road, which I suspect came from Francois Grimm's car that pitted at the end of the opening lap. Down at turn 5, race leader goes through, and the pit window is now open with 29 minutes and change remaining. So the pit window opens for 10 minutes, and now drivers getting themselves ready. And this, if you are on slicks, is an absolutely golden chance to pit early. Now, of course, Spinelli, as an example, by being so far back in the queue, will be able to pit this time. And I should imagine that he'll be delighted so to do, to get that car into the pits and get the correct tyres on for Max Wearing. Through the traffic then turns Lewis Williamson. Just put a lap on the Liebel Dvoracek entry that he shares in the background with Kurt Wagner. And Spinelli has not pitted, he's gone through for another lap. So Loris Spinelli, even though he's getting faster, 2 minutes 3, he's still 5 seconds off the pace, and that mystifies me that he's not come in sooner. He's on the wrong tyres, he's losing time lap after lap to this car, but he's stayed out for another lap, intriguingly. So Lewis Williamson continues on his way for the Oregon team. And we'll see whether he's going to be a pit visitor this time. The car comes out of gallop, out of turn 15. There is one in the pits, you can see, and there's a yellow flag at turn 4 as well, but the leader continues for another lap. So through goes Lewis Williamson, back onto the wet part of the racetrack there. Amaury Bonduelle goes through in second place. Amaury Bonduelle now 4.4 seconds back. There he is. And whatever the yellow flag was for, coming out of the first sequence of corners, it's not a big problem because the road is now clear, the green flag being shown. So there is Amaury Bonduelle going through. Second place, Carole Bache, there he is in third, only a second adrift. Carole Bache still pushing on to try to get onto terms with Lewis Williamson. It's going to be therefore in the second stint. Bronek Formanek chasing after Massimo Ciglia. There down at turn 5 is Carole Bache, and accelerating now back uphill through the kink and 6. The rest of the field comes pouring over the timing line, but Lewis Williamson looking very, very strong indeed up front, in the same way that Bonduelle did after the first couple of laps, being a good distance clear. But now Lewis Williamson's advantage is 4.4 seconds, which is quite something. They're going through. Carole Bache then in third spot, pushing, pushing, pushing. And tiptoeing out now from turn 10. And there is a driving standards flag being shown to Pierre Feligioni, who is down in 28th place, I suspect for track limit abuses, but the driving standards flag is being prepared for him. Into the pit lane there comes 97, which is Jürgen Krebs, to give way to Mikko Eskelinen. Good to have Mikko back. We've not seen him this year in the championship, but the very successful Finnish driver comes into the pit lane. So the Estonian and Finnish touring car champion, Spanish GT champion, will take over. And he's not the only one in the pits either, because that is being joined by others. Charlie Bourachot is in, and also Cedric Lima is in, and Kumar Prabhakaran is in. That's Amaury Bonduelle going through the traffic. That's the race leader, Lewis Williamson, snaking his way down the hill. That was coming out of turn 10, so lines still not being obvious in some cases, because the nature of the road is such that drivers push one lap and find that the grip level has changed, so they have to think again. I was telling you a lie saying that was 10, it was 4, this is 5. They tight hairpin at the end of the lap, then to the back straight, makes the climb, and getting a replay of synchronized spinning there. 55 going around is Adrian Lewandowski, and taking with him Holger Harmsen. So no harm done, I don't think, in terms of damage. Both able to rejoin. Precision parking as well as synchronized spinning. Very, very impressive the way they managed to do that. And also in strife there is Stefan Tribodini. So that car stranded. Now, has it got a punctured tyre? It has, hasn't it? The left rear, yes, definitely has gone down, and that is a wet, as you can see. And Tribodini has given up on the job. That's his race done. He's not going to get it back to the pits. And this could well now be either a safety car or a full course yellow to move that. And it's come at exactly the time that race officials hate, during a pit window, where trying to scoop up the order is very difficult, because you've always got cars coming into the pit lane. So Stefan Tribodini, who's had a mixed season, some good results, some very bad luck, he's out of the car, he's out of the race. And Stefan Tribodini's car stranded. It looks like the tyre has just given way. It doesn't look like there's been an incident that's cut the tyre. And Stefan Tribodini then is stranded out on the circuit. So, what is this going to do to the race situation? Lewis Williamson continuing to stay out. Loris Spinelli continuing to stay out, possibly feeling that now that the road is drying, he's a better driver to take advantage of that than Max Weering, less experienced a co-driver. Michel Gatting has just pitted, also Robert Vandenberg has just come in, so more and more out of that leading group making their pit stops, as now Amaury Bonduelle comes under attack. Carole Bache comes up to have a go for second place out of turn 5, and Bache gets the drive off the corner, sprints up the inside going into the kink at turn 6 and goes through. So Carole Bache goes through, and there is a 5-second penalty being applied to Adrian Lewandowski, number 55, and that is for causing a collision. That's at the end of the race. So that incident we saw, there was contact, and Adrian Lewandowski deemed to be the guilty party, so he will get this 5-second penalty, and it's going to be applied at the end of the race, not during the pit stops. So we've had that change for second place. It brings Carole Bache closer to the overall race lead, as you look there at Michel Gatting giving way to Dorian Pin. Now this is going to be interesting because Dorian Pin, remember, is on pole position for the second race on very, very impressive speed. Spinelli pits this time, the man from pole position comes in. And away goes Dorian Pin. Now, having said it's impressive that she's on pole position, doubly so, bearing in mind that it's not a car she's raced before. So learning and learning fast, but really, really good job done yesterday in Q2 by Dorian Pin. And that pace then being reflected, I'm sure, in what we're about to see in this next stint of the race. So there, down the pit lane comes the leader. That is Lewis Williamson. And because Carole Bache has stayed out, then so he takes over the advantage. Lewis Williamson in for Massimo Ciglia. So Lewis Williamson out, Massimo Ciglia in, and the mechanics take on the duties of strapping the driver in, doing the belt. Sometimes it's the co-driver because that gives him a chance to offer a word or two of advice or information about where it might be greasy, what the car feels like, but Lewis Williamson jumps out of the car, and it's the Oregon mechanic that makes sure that Massimo Ciglia is strapped in. The car controller then has to make sure that the car is released at the correct moment so that he trips the beam at 94 seconds when the car leaves the pit road. The familiar pirate on the side of an Oregon car. Donovan Privitello, the leading Lamborghini Cup racer, is into the pits as well, by the way, to give way to Luciano Privitello. Amaury Bonduelle, who has been in as well. So the order is going to shuffle markedly here. What's going to be interesting, if you can peer down the pit lane, is to see if anybody is changing tyres. Because if they did start on a wet, maybe now is the time, sorry, on a wet, now is the time to go to slicks. Well, no, I think they're going to try and make those last to the end. But those that were on slicks, in theory, should have the road coming to them. I don't think they're going to want to change on to wets now. You're sort of condemned with what you've got. So down the pit lane goes the Bonaldi entry, which will now have Max Weering at the wheel of it. Number 13 good to go is Stefan Guerin, forgive me, who is ready to blast back into the race in the Arcadia Racing entry. And so there, the rest of the cars making their way down the pit lane, ready to rejoin. And so as they do, you will have the final few pit stoppers cycling through. A minute and a half seems like a very long time when you just sat there, but now Stefan Guerin has waved away. So, the race now with 19 minutes still to go. And it is Carole Bache leading, but yet to stop. And there is Massimo Ciglia, who is still ahead of Amaury Bonduelle. So he's maintained track position on the pit stops. But now, Amaury Bonduelle underlining this advantage that the soloists have, because he knows the track, he knows the car, whereas Chiglia is thrown straight into this and has now got to deliver. Another incident being looked at is that between Claude-Yves Gosselin and Cédric Lima. That's under investigation. Last few pit stops cycling through. There, Bronek Formanek has taken over from Carole Bache and dropped back. And also making a bit of progress forward now, Martin Riva, who's taken over from Edoardo Liberati. So the order is going to be a very jumbled one for a lap or so, with traffic in the way as well. The Iron Dames, Michel Gatting, now Dorian Pin car, up into 4th place. But it is Chiglia no longer the race leader, because ahead of him now, by the look of it, is Amaury Bonduelle. Have a look up the road. Looks as though Bonduelle has gone by. Yes, he has there. Look at the gold car. So down they come, heading into turn 5. And I just wonder whether Bronek Formanek has got out ahead of the pair of them as well after taking over from Carole Bache, because that car's gone missing from the timing screen for the moment. So now Massimo Chiglia, down in 2nd place, has also got caught up in the traffic. There's the leader. There is Bonduelle, who is ahead, and now absolutely charging. So Amaury Bonduelle making good his escape, getting clear of the back markers, and using his knowledge of car and circuit condition to very, very good effect. So now Amaury Bonduelle looks as though he's going to be able to build quite a good lead here, heading towards the final part of this race. 17 minutes still on the clock. Yellow flag being waved. There's a spinner in the background. Everybody, I think, avoids drama, but one car off the road. And it looks as though it may well have been Gregor Machulski, number 5, who was the spinner. It gets away again, but delayed, as over the line comes Amaury Bonduelle, trying to avoid bits of debris now that are lying on the racetrack. Bonduelle ahead of Massimo Chiglia by 5 seconds already. Monster advantage that he's been able to pull in the space of 1 lap. And another driver being given a penalty is 63 Cédric Lima. He will get a 5-second penalty at the end of the race for causing a collision as well. Right, so Bonduelle getting away from Chiglia. Chiglia in turn pulling away from Martin Riva. But now the danger potentially for an outright podium is Dorian Pin, because her car is in 4th and lapping quicker than the 2 ahead. So there is Bonduelle, the race leader. We're now on to lap 16 of the race. The cars come down through the hairpin at turn 5. Their second is number 27. That is Massimo Chiglia, crucially still leading his class, therefore, to stretch the advantage over Dan Wells and Oscar Lee. And in 3rd place, Martin Riva, who's taken over from Edoardo Liberati, and in turn is falling away a little now. So they're going through with Chiglia. So the Italian driver for the Oregon squad, taking over from Lewis Williamson, the former Italian sports prototype racer, now in his 2nd season in these cars, and heads down on a drying road towards turn 13. Loops his way around that long left, and then there's another climb up towards Sagres. But Amaury Bonduelle now looking unstoppable. The other question out of all of this is to do with Max Weering, as they're in the traffic, being a bit delayed is Chiglia. So Max Weering, the pro champion, has taken over from Loris Spinelli and trying to make progress. 22nd only, however. So those on wets, trying to make them last. Those on the slicks, wanting the road to dry out continuously. And over the timing line, blast Massimo Chiglia. That was a 2 minutes 3, so much, much slower than Lewis Williamson was going. And Amaury Bonduelle has now done the fastest lap of the race. He's done a 1:57.055. So there, the climb up the hill, still stuck in traffic, he's Chiglia. So he's got himself a bit ensnared now behind Gabriel Rindoni. Rindoni, normally one of the faster drivers within the AMP competition. And a drive-through penalty now is being given to number 36. So 36, which is the Charlie Bourachot, Stéphane Lemeray newcomer car, that gets a drive-through. And 18 is being given a 1/10 of a second penalty at the end of the race for being short on the pit stop. 18, David Serban. So he will get 0.156 of a second at the end of the race. So there you've got the second place car of Massimo Cilia, still stuck behind Gabriel Ridoni. Finally, he goes through, makes his move now. But crucially, Massimo Cilia still leading within the Pro-Am competition. Now, very good stint was done by Carole Bash earlier on. That car has disappeared off the leaderboard completely, however, and Carole may be able to explain why. He's with Marietta.
We started very well from P6 to P2, and the pace was really good. The conditions are very tricky because it's very slippery. The track is not so much water, but it's very slippery, so it's difficult to keep the car in the mood. But for this moment, we are on the way. So cross fingers.
And how do you assess how your co-driver is doing at the moment?
Yeah, for this moment he is running well. So let's wait until finish.
Good luck. Thank you.
I can only assume that the transponder has stopped working, because there, yes, is 66, but the car has completely disappeared off the timing screen. Now, we need to just put that in the context of where Lewis Williamson is, and the answer is that Williamson, up to the eye, is behind him on the road. So that's the leader, Amaury Bonduel, but 66 has either lost a lap somehow off the timing screen, or the transponder has given up working, because it just doesn't appear anymore. So Amaury Bonduel accelerates towards us, but this now complicates life hugely, because if 66 stays ahead of 27, it's going to be leading in Pro-Am, which is not so good news for Cilia as far as points are concerned. Right, I think I've done the penalties for the moment. Next job is to try and get a proper grip on the race order when they come across the timing line. So the race leader, to the eye, Amaury Bonduel, slakes his way through, still charging his Massimo Cilia, and I'm waiting for the leader to come across the line. Max Rearing has just gone through, the pro champion. Race now with just over 10 minutes still to go, and although the road is drying, it's clouded over again. So Bonduel is leading, number 28, by a huge margin, it's got to be said. Good battle going on there between Oscar Lee and, behind him, Benjamin Vandenberg. That going through is Michel Gatting. Right, second on the road is number 66. So Bronek Formanek runs second, and he's therefore leading in Pro-Am ahead of Massimo Cilia, but for reasons that are not being made clear, the car isn't being shown on the lead lap. There is Dorian Pin, who is now in 4th place, having got up past Milan Tikens. So Dorian Pin, second in Pro, comes up to try to put a lap on Gabriel Ridoni. Goes through on the inside line and picks up the place on the road now, so goes through. Good effort this by the Iron Dames team. Now, Loris Spinelli had a very difficult start to the race, didn't he, on those slick tyres? Marietta has caught up with him in the pit lane, and we'll get to him in a moment. Loris Spinelli just back to the team, I understand. Have a quick word, so we'll try and get to him in due course. Right, there is 83, which is Dorian Pin, still pushing hard. And we found Bronek Formanek again. His transponder has been restored, or the rogue lap has come back to him, so now we can see that he is pulling away on lap time from this car, Massimo Cilia. So it is Bonduelle leading Pro, it is Brunek Formanek leading Pro-Am. The leading Am is still Andrei Lewandowski, and then the leading Lamborghini Cup entry is to be found a little bit further down, and I need the second page to scroll through before that can be confirmed. It is still the Privitellios. They've kept the class lead, so Luciano Privitello now is ahead in the class. Father of Donovan, who started. So looking as though that's going to be a class victory. Leaders go through then, 17 seconds being the advantage, and the gap is down slightly this time between second and third. In other words, the top two in the Pro-Am competition. So there over the timing line goes the fight between Milan Petelet and Oscar Lee, and they are fighting for position in Pro-Am. Oscar Lee just about staying ahead in 8th overall, but then goes wide, and Milan Petelet gets up the inside and goes through. And behind them as well, look, you've got number 11, which is Alessandro Tarabini, who is fighting for places also. And 78, which has had a slow first stint, coming back into the mix as well, Emanuele Zonzini. So these four all disputing 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th places. Good battle. Wide goes Oscar Lee. That potentially gives Zonzini a chance to challenge up on the inside. There's a car with a problem ahead. Now he's had another one with a tyre that's gone down. There was one car you could just see limping over the brow. We'll try and catch up on that in a moment, but one car with a problem. And again, if this is because people are on the wrong tyres and those tyres are now overheating, they need to be mindful of tyre preservation. There is Alessandro Tarabini charging on, and it is a significant puncture because that's the Lamborghini Cup leading car stranded by the side of the circuit. So it is Luciano Privitello who has come to grief at turn 7. The car is stationary, but that, remember, was leading within the Lamborghini Cup, and so out of the race now is Privitello, and that throws up into the air the whole situation in Lamborghini Cup. Now, to limp on, you would do damage to the car, potentially. You would also lose so much time, you would not be able to make it back. There's hardly any real point, unless it happens at the last corner. And there, heading up the hill, you can just see at the top of the screen, the tyre goes, there's the tyre smoke, and that is the change of lead now in Lamborghini Cup, as Luciano Privitello parks the car out of the race. Very, very disappointed driver indeed, with a class lead gone. And of course, the next question is that the lead will go to whom? The answer is the Semoulins. What does that do to the championship? Well, Gerard van der Horst is second in the class, and he was ahead by 12 points, so it almost takes the Privitellios out of the hunt for the championship. Makes it very, very difficult indeed going into race 2. There are 5 minutes to go, and a reminder that in this series, the flag goes out the first time the leader crosses the line once the allotted time is up. It's not a regulation lap tagged on at the end like some categories have. So it is a race against the clock, and Amaury Bonduelle has driven really well here, got the lead early on, has looked after the tyres, and now has got decent pace late into the race now, because he is lapping quicker than those behind him. The gap is coming down second to third though, and that's crucial for the win in Pro-Am, with Massimo Ciglia catching up onto the back of Brunek Formanek. Leader goes out of turn 1. So Amaury Bonduelle slides there. Remember, he is on wet on a drying track. They're overheating. 22. Oh, we've got cars everywhere all of a sudden, because Cedric Limer is facing the wrong way. In number 63, there was another car off on the inside as well. It looked like 22 had been delayed likewise, Kurt Wagner. So Cedric Limer is facing the wrong way. The Lamborghini stalwart gets back on track now. There in second place, leading Pro-Am is Bronek Formanek, but for how long? Because he's got Massimo Cilia catching right up to him. There you can see in the background. They've also got to clear the delayed second Michelet car there of Yuri Wagner, which they will do so. Get past him now. So, Formanek versus Cilia for second place and for the Pro-Am lead. And there, through the traffic as well, goes Dorian Pin. And now, look, Massimo Cilia suddenly loses 2 places because both Pin and Tikens go ahead of him. So rather than catching up for a class lead, Massimo Cilia suddenly loses 2 places overall. It's all shuffling as drivers now have to cope with looking after their tyres and how much life they've got in them and how much they can afford to push on a drying circuit with just under 3 minutes to go. There is the AM leader, Andrei Lewandowski. He tiptoes his way out of turn 5. Anne-Marie Bonduelle is the race leader. That's the easy bit in all of this. In second place, though, a long, long way back now, is going to be, we will find out at the end of the lap, because there's more shuffling going on coming out of turn 14. Number 60 there, look, Lewandowski comes over the brow, heading for another class victory, and potentially to another class championship. That's the leader, Bonduelle, coming out of turn 3. It is still Formanek second, it's Dorian Pin in third, it's Milan Tikens in fourth, it's Massimo Cilia in fifth, and so Formanek is still leading in Pro-Am, and he's now got 2 cars worth of a cushion between himself and Massimo Cilia. Anne-Marie Bonduelle is going to get 1 more lap out of the race. That will come when he breaks the beam this time. There you can see, look, Dorian Pin, and a spin ahead. That's Formanek who throws away the Pro-Am lead. Just a little bit too eager with the throttle, and around goes the back. Formanek spins, he's got going again, but having been losing time, suddenly gaining a place. Massimo Cilia then takes over the lead in Pro-Am, which is vital for the championship. Dorian Pin up to second overall, Milan Tikens up to third overall. So the Iron Dames entry over the brow. And there, snaking as he applies the power, the car of Milan Tikens, but behind Massimo Cilia now up into the lead of Pro-Am after that spin for Bronek Formanek. And this was what happened. Formanek coming out of turn 3, just got the power down a fraction too soon, and that was enough to spin the car around onto the wet grass. And Karol Bash will be absolutely furious after all of his hard work has come to naught. They're still going to be on the class podium, but not for the win. That's the perils of being the pro in the Pro-Am car. Your work sometimes isn't rewarded. Over the timing line now onto his last lap goes Anne-Marie Bonduelle. Goes through and looked pretty dominant in the final part of this race. It's been a mighty, mighty effort. For second place, Dorian Pin. And then Milan Tikens for third, as the cars will eventually make their way up the hill over the timing line. But again, that just illustrates how far ahead the leader is. Dorian Pin goes through, Milan Tikens is 4/10 back, and then you've got Massimo Cilia just consolidating the class lead now. He's 3.7 seconds up the road on Bronek Formanek. So a class win beckons for Massimo Cilia. Dorian Pin, though, trying to fend off Milan Tikens. Bearing in mind, Dorian Pin has not raced this car before. It's very, very impressive indeed. She's on pole position for the later race. Milan Tikens, the race winner this year, comes up to have a go on the outside line. Can't find a way round, switches sides, lines up for a go on the inside, down towards the hairpin at turn 5, but can't get level. So Dorian Pin moves across, defends as they drop down to the braking zone now. Tikens on the outside line. It's all about traction off the corner. He gets run out wide by Dorian Pin, but he's gained an advantage there by going off the racetrack. Does he force the issue? Does he go through? Doesn't make it move yet. Does so now. Yes, goes through on the inside, approaching turn 7. Now, you could argue that by going off the road, he had an advantage, had a bit of traction there, coming off the corner, but the stewards will have a look at that and see whether there's a case to answer. What is true is that he's up into second place, and Dorian Pin is down into third. So Milan Tikens then heading for second place on the road. Anne-Marie Bonduelle is heading for a second victory of the season as he accelerates then now up towards the checkered flag, and it's going to be honours in the penultimate round of Lamborghini Super Trofeo Europe 2. Amaury Bonduelle in a very interesting race, thanks to the track conditions. He wins. Second will go the way on the road of Milan Tikans. We'll see whether anything comes of that moment that he had round the outside. He was forced wide, admittedly, by Dorian Pin, but he was off the road, and therefore perhaps is able to maintain momentum. There is Milan Tikans coming up towards the timing line, and Dorian Pin is where, because over the line goes Tikans. Then we have, for third place, coming through on the last sector point, Massimo Ciglia. So Ciglia takes third place. And for fourth, Bronek Formanek. So Dorian Pin now being shown as fifth, but has not yet got to the timing line. Yes, maybe she's had a spin out of sight, because in the end, the car that was third when we last looked ends up fifth as she comes across the line. So Massimo Ciglia takes third and wins in Pro-Am. Second in Pro-Am, Bronek Formanek and Carole Bash. And then Dorian Pin coming home fifth, still third in Pro, but fifth overall, so a long, long way back in the end. And then for sixth place, it's Milan Petelet and Dimitra Gavatseva. That's going to be third in Pro-Am. This is the Am winner, Andrei Lewandowski, coming through. Lewandowski is going to be 12th overall, ahead of Shota Abkhazova, who is another regular racer in Super Trofeo, but we've not seen much of the Georgian driver this year. But across the line goes Lewandowski to win. Abkhazova is going to be second, and potentially Cyril Lima for third place. I say potentially because there's a long wait before he comes through. So a happy winning team for Amaury Bonduelle. Shota Abkhazova has just gone through. The penalised Stefan Lemery goes through. Now Cyril Lima goes across the timing line to be 18th overall and third in the AMS. And for the Lamborghini Cup, it'll be the Semolans ahead of Gerard van der Horst, and then Hans Fabry potentially as the winner. So Amaury Bonduelle is victorious. And a very, very impressive win in the end. 28.3 seconds rather suggests that he ran away and hid, but actually he had to fight back and retake the lead. So it's been a really interesting race there. It's amazing what weather conditions can do to a motor race. And Amaury Bonduelle comes through as the victor. So a second win of the season for Bonduelle. Second place to Milan Tikans and Marzio Moretti. They've had now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 second places this year. And third overall to Massimo Ciglia and Lewis Williamson. At one point they looked as though they could even be overall winners, but in the end it was a class win at least. And that is a fifth of the season. Andrei Lewandowski wins in the AMS for the fourth time this year, and the Semolans taking honours in Lamborghini Cup. That is a third victory of the season for them. So Amaury Bonduelle out of the car. There is Massimo Ciglia making his way into the top three area. See Milan Tikans clambering out of his car, but Amaury Bonduelle, great effort this. And so much of it down to the correct choice of tyre and using them at the right time, so not stressing them too much, not asking too much of them at the wrong moment. So they're the teams making their way down the pit lane to greet their drivers. And it's a very, very happy Amaury Bonduelle, who's gone solo for the 50 minutes. He's had to cope with traffic, with changing track conditions, the confusion over the start. But in the end, it has all turned out well for the French driver. And Amaury Bonduelle, in a moment, will take off his crash helmet. Marietta is poised, ready to have a word. And Amaury Bonduelle is our first winner of the Lamborghini Grand Finals weekend. Marietta, he's all yours.
Mauri, it was a very tricky race for a lot of the drivers, but you played your cards very well.
Yes, thank you. The team he did an amazing job this night to change my engine, because I have an issue yesterday on quali with the fuel pressure, oil pressure. I'm so happy. Thanks to all the team. It's amazing.
Thank you very much. Good luck for tomorrow.
Still one race for Amaury Bonduelle to try and conquer later on in the afternoon as well, but a good job done, and being able to make the most of challenging conditions. Dorian Pin, dramas on the last lap. We need to catch up on what happened, because she just got up to third, apologising to the team. No, I spun, I think she said. So that's pretty much the guesstimation we made, that from third all of a sudden fifth, but she wasn't the only one that spins, and don't forget she'd never raced the car before, so a good job done. So, Pro-Am winners, Massimo Ciglia and Lewis Williamson. They're with Marietta right now.
Important race for the both of you guys. How was your stint?
Yes, it was a tough stint because of the condition of the track. I gave my best, so we won the championship in the way it should be.
Lewis, we spoke on the grid. I don't know if I brought you good luck, but you executed the plan to perfection.
Yeah, I mean, the aim was to try and get the car safely to Maximo on the pit stop. So, yeah, to get the lead was fine. It was nice, you know, but it wasn't the most important. So, most important for us is Pro-Am. So, you know, we try and keep it on the black stuff and get the results. So, thankfully, that's happened. So, super grateful to be here. This guy's done a phenomenal job all year. The team, amazing. So, yeah. Not so much pressure now.
Lewis did a phenomenal job all the season with me, and thanks to the team and the organization also.
Fantastic, guys. Congratulations.
So we have our Pro-Am champions confirmed then, because just looking down the class results, Oscar Lee and Dan Wells 7th, so giving away points, and that means that it is the Pro-Am championship to Massimo Ciglia and Lewis Williamson. So, provisional results, it is Amaury Bonduelle who wins race 1 from Milan Tikens and Marzio Moretti, with Massimo Ciglia and Lewis Williamson 3rd and winning Pro-Am. Bronick Formanek and Carole Bash taking 4th ahead of Dorian Pin and Michel Gatting, with 6th Milan Petelet and Dimitra Govatsova. Robert and Jonathan Vandenberg 7th ahead of Emanuele Zonzini and Emanuele Colombini. Martin Rieber and Eduardo Liberati 9th and 10th going to Alessandro Talabini and Filippo Berto. 12th, Andrei Lewandowski to win in Am. And the winning Lamborghini Cup entries, the Semolins down in 28th place, Francois and Benoit Semolin, after an impressive drive. They fended off Gerard van der Horst. Disappointment, of course, for the Privitellios, who were leading before the puncture, which did for them in the same way that Stefan Tribodini had a puncture and also retired from the race. So now, drivers will make their way to the podium. 4 podiums, of course, because there is a podium per class. And before long, we will have the drivers up there ready to go. Lamborghini Squadra Corsa personnel, making sure that everybody's where they need to be. And the fantastic Algarve circuit, which is a very popular place to race, a very popular place to come and test as well, because you get so much good weather here. You get very, very few interruptions to testing programs because of people falling off. Well, they don't. If you go testing in February in the UK, for example, you're lucky if you get more than 6 laps before somebody's off the road. But here, because it's normally dry, but people don't go off in the same way, with the same regularity, so you can get a lot more testing and a lot more useful data. So it's a very, very busy complex, this circuit. Right then, drivers are just about ready. Podium awaits.
Kan echt geen trucs uithalen.
And
Gewoon een beetje met verstand uitrijden. Dat was moeilijk ook hoor.
Vandenberg discussing what was going on in their race. Andrei Lewandowski talking to Shotaib Kazova. And despite the spin, Bronick Formanek congratulating Dorian Pin and Michel Gatting, with Carole Bash there. Dorian Pin frustrated after the spin.
I think this track is so slippery, because normally this car doesn't go like this. Okay. Seriously, this track is very tricky on this track. Like, my first time I drive with this car like this, that was, you know, fighting so much and everything. I was struggling.
Survival, not to spin everywhere.
You not expected what's happening.
No.
The car driving, you not you driving
It's
car.
always like, okay, try.
Me is T7.
Yeah, T7 was
Every lap.
Okay, I feel like passenger sometimes.
T9. We were also very slow.
Fascinating to hear the drivers talking about how slippery it was and at which corners. And Carol Bash, who knows the cars very, very well, of course, he's raced them for many seasons, saying that the car's never normally like this, but underlining the point about how treacherous the road is. Now, the North American race starts in another hour. So it's going to be interesting to discover whether the track is better or worse when we get to that part of the day, whether it's changed much. It should be better still. So, there the drivers are ready. And we now need somebody to take charge to bring the drivers forward, ready for the first of the podium ceremonies.
You shift before my spinning. And I shift, no shifting, and I still cross and start.
But you have a break 2 years? 2 years you don't driving? 3 years. But in your
2019.
But you drive maybe your country or no?
Shotron Kazma saying he's back after a 3-year absence, which is good to see. Of course, travel and problems in that region of the world have made it difficult for people to race. So gradually, drivers are all being rounded up. The Iron Lynx crew that operates the Iron Dames car standing under the podium ready to celebrate. And so, do we have everybody we need? Not quite. Not quite. Feels like half the grid is up there. Portimao circuit being the 49th, different track, and this 4.6 kilometre circuit, the 8th different venue for the World Final weekend. It has been to Vallelunga, Misano, Imola, Valencia, Jerez, Sepang, and also Sebring as well. It's tended to be more of a European-based event over the last few seasons, but now we await the podium. The drivers will be called forward in a moment. And so, third overall being brought forward, and also the Pro-Am winners, Lewis Williamson and Massimo Cilia. Milan Tikens and Matteo Moretti for second place. Step forward. Race this year. And then for the top stuff in the podium for a second race win of the season is Amaury Bonduel, who is going to be a very, very happy man with a new engine in the car. The former racer onto the top step. And for the French driver, the national anthem, and also for the winning team, it is an honour for Amaury Bonduel and for the winning team of the BDR Competition squad. So well done to Amaury Bonduel. He takes the race win. The fastest lap, incidentally, went the way of Max Weary. A couple of laps from the end. And that was as the car finally was able to make its tyres work on the track conditions. Third place trophies then go to Lewis Williamson and Massimo Ciglia. Then second, Marzio Moretti and Milan Tikens. And Federico Teneja hands over the winner's trophy to Amaury Bonduel. Everybody now makes their way onto the top step for photographs. They all huddle together along with the Pirelli representatives, and all smiles because you've got a race winner, you've got a pair that have just won their championship in class as well. There is champagne at their feet, but of course the drivers do need to race again today, so whether the champagne's going to be sprayed, there's your answer. Yes, it is. This is where you suddenly need to work out whether you've got spare overalls. But for the Pro-Am champions, Massimo Ciglia and Lewis Williamson, the celebrations are underway. The Oregon team drivers can celebrate in style. So well done to the Anglo-Italian pairing, victorious in the race, in class and in the championship as well. So now the drivers will be made ready for, I'm assuming, the Pro-Am podium is going to be next. And therefore, we'll have Lewis Williamson and Massimo Ciglia back, but we'll also have Dimitri Gavatseva and Milan Petelet, along with Karol Bash and Bronet Formanek. Amaury Bonduel having driven very, very well in that race to keep out of trouble, to make the tyres work when they were able to work, and comes through to score a win by just under half a minute, 28.3 seconds, so a very, very commanding advantage at the end of the race. Just about secures second for him in the championship as well, in the pro category, as the Pro-Am drivers now make their way forward. So we have Milan Petelet and Dimitri Gavatseva, we have Karol Bash and Bronet Formanek, and now we have the Pro-Am winners back again, Massimo Ciglia and Lewis Williamson, who step onto the podium once more. And this time there's going to be the Italian national anthem for the Oregon team. Complimenti to Oregon team, and honours then to Massimo Ciglia and Lewis Williamson. And what better way to win the championship than to win the class in that race? So the honours taken then by the Oregon team drivers, as first up, Milan Petelet, reunited for this weekend with Dimitri Gavatseva, take the third place trophies. Then for second place, Bronet Formanek and Karol Bash, the Polish driver. Wait. Everyone says to Bronet Formanek. Who wants to get on with this? And then the trophies to the winners, to Massimo Ciglia and to Lewis Williamson, who are wet already from their first spray of champagne. The Pirelli trophy presented, and that goes to the AM and the Pro-Am car. And Bronet Formanek is absolutely determined to soak anybody he can find. Bronet Formanek and Karol Bash did have a win at Misano. They had a win at Barcelona, and oh so nearly had a win here, but that spin costing them dear. So now the podium is made ready for the AMs. And again, a quick look at points there would suggest, as far as the AM competition is concerned, that with Gabriel Rindoni finishing quite a long way down, in the end he was 4th, 5th, 6th in class, that has pretty much given the advantage now to Andrei Lewandowski to secure that championship. He will now have 129 points. And he'll be 19 up on Rindoni. So there, Andrei Lewandowski is, by my reckoning, the new AM champion. Congratulations to Andrei Lewandowski, to Shotab Kazava and to Cyril Lima, who are all on the podium as Federica Teneja steps forward with the trophies for 3rd and for 2nd. Shotab Kazava, racer, team owner, circuit owner, promoter, driver, you name it. There's not much he doesn't do in motorsport. And he takes 2nd with Andrei Lewandowski taking another winner's trophy, having already been victorious at Paul Ricard. He won both at Misano, and he had 1 win in the races held at Barcelona, and now 1 here as well. Champagne. So 5th win of the year for Andrei Lewandowski. Champagne is not going to be sprayed. Shotab Kazo thinks it ought to be, but he's got no playmates. Andrei Lewandowski then takes honours in the first AM battle of the weekend. And with that, provisionally, it will give Andrei Lewandowski the championship from Gabriel Rindoni and Stefan Guerin in 3rd. Not sure those points are right, because allowing for a win, Andrei Lewandowski should have had more than that. But anyway, the final drivers are those in the Lamborghini Cup. For 3rd place, there will be Hans Fabry. There is property developer Gerard van der Horst. And for the top step are Benoit and Francois Semoulin, who are victorious for the 3rd time this year. So for Benoit and Francois Semoulin then, the gold trophy, as it were, is going to be presented, the winner's trophy, to the Belgian drivers at the end of another impressive drive. But first of all, Hans Fabry, who himself has been victorious this year. He won at Imola right at the start of the season and was a regular winner last season. He takes 3rd, 2nd gained away of Gerard van der Horst, and there the winner's trophies to the Semoulins at the end of a very impressive effort. Federica Teneji then presents the trophies. Pirelli also provide a trophy to the winning drivers. Ferrucci Pavesi is the man who will hand over the trophy to the winners and stands with them for the photographs. And so Francois and Benoit Samoulin take honours in Lamborghini Cup. Gerard van der Horst taking second and Hans Fabry taking third. They will race again at 1:25 this afternoon. Next up here at Portimao is going to be the first of the two North American races, but it's been a lively start to the day in the Lamborghini Grand Finals, with honours going the way of Amaury Bonduelle. In the championship then, Gerard van der Horst confirmed now as champion from the Privitellios that didn't score, but you've got then Hans Fabry next, taking third in that first race. So well done to Gerard van der Horst. So he's uncatchable now in Lamborghini Cup, and we'll look forward to seeing the cars back on track later on in the day. Right, we'll see you for the North American race, which will start on the hour, but we'll have a look back at some of the best bits of the opening race of Lamborghini Grand Finals weekend.